Now,
Hey everyone, welcome to the Self-Publishing Podcast. Today we're going to talk about starting an email list when you're just starting out. I also think we're probably going to delve a little bit into some of the stuff that we talked about in the last episode, if you were listening, with Andre Chaperone, just because that's always a confusing topic and sort of how to use your mailing list. Well, I don't know. I don't want to step on it. Sean is kind of running this one, but is it truly just when you're starting out, or are we just going to kind of talk email best practices?
no, I think in all of this stuff, it's best practices. I think the hook is when you're just starting out. But I think, too, this is one of those things where it's like having the eyes of a newbie is a good thing, because you forget what it's like to look at something with fresh eyes and not really understand it. And I think that if you approach it, you can kind of see things new. So we forget what we know, right? And I mean, I don't know. I think I signed up for my first Aweber account 9 years ago now, which is a long ass time in all of this, right? So think how much email and email hasn't changed that much, but the mechanisms by which we use it have changed dramatically. And, going from just using email personally to, learning to broadcast, to crafting autoresponders, to using them to sell high ticket items, and then using them for fiction, it's a long road. And so I think going back to the very beginning and kind of deconstructing some of this makes a lot of sense. And Christine has done such a tremendous job with, getting our messaging in place and helping us to get these autoresponders and building our new list, to really build on the work that we've done in the last few years and really, push it to that next level. She's the perfect, fourth person to have on. So we'll get to all of that. But I think that taking it with fresh eyes is a really good starting point.
All right. So does anybody have anything cool? I will warn you, I do not, because when we do 2 shows in a row, I'm out. Only one cool thing happens per week.
Well, Dave should go because he wasn't here for something cool last episode.
Bastard. I only have one thing cool, and that's Xanax. Thank you, Xanax, for helping me get through today.
Wow.
Dave, is it cool for you that this time a hurricane is hitting us instead of you?
Well, you're not where the hurricane is, are you?
No, but it's it'll just be a lot of rain.
Texas has had many horrible hurricanes. Oh my God, they've had some of the worst.
Yeah, but I mean, just in general, like it's usually you who's bunkering out.
It's only beginning of the hurricane season. I'm sure I'll get one.
You're sure you'll get one?
Don't worry.
All right. As long as you're put out, then it's good.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the best place to live. I mean, if that tornado comes to, or not tornado, we got tornado in the chat here. If the hurricane goes to Austin, then Austin's off my list. I'm done with fucking hurricanes.
Well, it'll come here, but it'll just be a bunch of rain and stuff.
Rain is perfect for Austin. You get mudslides. Great. Awesome.
There's not enough mud here to be a mudslide. It's all rock.
Yeah. All right.
Dave thinks disasters everywhere. That's just all there is to it. Do I have something cool? Yeah, I shouldn't have done the 2 last episode and saved one for this episode. That would have been the smart thing to do. But I think I've done this one already, actually. But it's so good. I'll do it again because I think it's criminal that Dave hasn't seen this. But Handmaid's Tale is just so good. It is by far the only thing. The most adult thing we watched with Haley. But I don't remember where Ethan was. Ethan was somewhere, one night, and we were looking for something to watch that just Haley could watch. And we happened upon
Faces of Death wasn't available?
It was not. It was at my grandma's house. And so so we watched it and it was super good. And now every time it's just the 3 of us, we pop in an episode. And it's exceptional. And not that I was like shitting on Hulu, but I just didn't expect Hulu stepped it up. It's as good as anything on Netflix or HBO.
You think Robin and I could watch that based on what I've told you about what she'll watch? And
Probably not. It's rough, dude. Like it's rough. And
I love this list of things that I have to watch by myself because it's like impossible. So
well, I would never have picked this to watch with Haley at all. Like she wants to watch Orange is the New Black, and we said no. But I'm not. Yeah, we're already watching it. But
start her with Oz before it went.
But I actually don't have any problem with it because, like, again, our discussions have been really great around it, and it's like there's nothing in it she can't handle. It's just I wouldn't have necessarily chosen it, but it's really, really good, and the themes are just amazing. Do you know the hook, Johnny?
Yeah, I do.
And Dave, do you know the hook?
Yes, I know. Yeah, I'm familiar with the story.
Dave's pretty sure that's the way most of America is right now.
Yeah, dude, just get Hulu for a month, watch it, and then cancel if you don't want to have.
It's
Hulu.
a documentary. It's not fiction.
But it is absolutely worth it. I'm just really impressed by the show, and I love that it came from Hulu because it's like, man, there are so many A players right now in the TV space. Like,
Well,
it's just
didn't the Stephen King one impress you? Or
well, I didn't see it.
While you have Hulu, get that.
I've been meaning to, but I watched a couple of things on Hulu that were just so okay. And the best thing that I saw prior to this was The Path with Aaron Paul. Yeah, which had some things going for it, and I really wanted to like it. I love the premise. I love anything with a cult. I love Aaron Paul. Like, there's a lot of really good stuff there, but it just didn't quite gel for me. It felt
it takes time for a network to build up a reputation.
No, I agree.
HBO's early days.
No, I totally agree. But that's my point. Like, I didn't know Hulu was there. Like, the Stephen King thing looked good, but it didn't look great, and I didn't hear anyone raving about it. But then, like, okay, I'm going to give Handmaid's Tale a chance, and I think it's going to be good, but I don't think it's going to be great. But Haley wants to watch it. Okay, that's fine. But, dude, it's really good. It's really, really good. So, anyway, I think that might have been my something cool from few weeks ago.
I don't remember it for what it's worth.
Well, if so, I think it's worth it twice, and if not, awesome. There we go.
Well, I have a something WTF. This is I'll just mention it, and I'm not gonna give any spoilers. I'm not even really going to give much of an opinion other than the obvious one. But I did go to see The Dark Tower, and my WTF on the whole thing is, so you had a proven series with a ton of fans, and you decided to make one 90-minute movie that has nothing to do with it.
It's 90 minutes?
It's 90 minutes. It's not even a long movie.
Are you kidding me? So they took a 7-book series where each book, except for the first one, is like huge. And they made a 90-minute movie?
90-minute movie. And so it's
like... But isn't it segging into a TV show or something? I thought it wasn't. This isn't it. I thought this was like an introductory thing.
No, the original concept was Akiva Goldsman was the scriptwriter, and Ron Howard was the producer. And he's the guy who wrote A Beautiful Mind, and he actually wrote Batman and Robin, I think, too. So, right. But he was attached, and Ron Howard was attached, and it was going to be a movie, and then an HBO series, and then back in a movie. They were going to handle it in both mediums, and that sounded really cool, but they couldn't quite get it to work. And then this monstrosity happened.
I thought there's still a TV project attached.
This one has nowhere to go. Now, again, okay, I guess I will give an opinion, but no.
I think you already did.
Well, no,
I should not see the movie. I should just
no.
Read the books, dude.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna give anything away. But I read about it ahead of time because the Rotten Tomato score was so bad. It was like 17%. It was like this in the Emoji Movie. Like, woohoo, this is the year.
Don't forget the other one, the Luc Besson movie.
But the most of what people had a problem with was that it wasn't remotely an adaptation of the books. Like, it's not even close. Like, it has the same characters roughly, and that's it.
Is it like fan fiction?
Well, no, it's the best way to watch it. And this is what somebody said, is they said, you know what? It sucks as an adaptation of The Dark Tower, but it's not that bad as a Stephen King movie that if you
does Roland at any point say you forget the face of your father?
Oh, yeah, many times. Like, that's the one thing they kept.
Okay, well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And it's and Idris Elba plays a very good Roland. Like, if anything, I feel bummed that they spoiled, like, because if they reboot it, it can't be him again, right? It'll have to be another actor. So it's kind of like you blew your chance because he was a really good Roland. And that
sounds
kind
like
of
a fucking spoiler.
But if you just watch it as like a Stephen King movie, like, it's not. I had some problems with it, but it's not bad that way, and it was entertaining. But I was just.
It sounds like you really, really wanted to like it. It's just. Well, no,
I went in with this expectation, and the expectation was met. Like I didn't go in expecting it to be an adaptation of the Dark Tower because I knew, but I just don't understand why they would like let that opportunity go. It would have been a slam dunk, like kind of like Lord of the Rings, like Stephen King, The Dark Tower. You could have nailed that, but they didn't. So go figure. Anyway, so Christine, do you have anything cool while you're in here, or you just want to leap into business?
Well, I'm far less cool than you guys. My something cool is that I started rewatching Friends from the first season when I'm having insomnia. So,
dude, I've been through it 3 times. It's awesome. It's a great show.
We watch it on a loop. When we get to the end, we just go back to the first episode again. It's like every single night.
I don't know. I mean, there's some episodes I've seen probably 20 times, but in a row, I've done that 3 times.
True fact. When Sean hears the clap in the theme song, he gets an erection.
That is true. That is true. Which is why I try to never hear that clap in public or around my children.
Well, yeah. So I would say that's probably my something cool is that Friends is putting me to sleep. But there's so much in that first season that I had forgotten about. So it's really kind of neat to go back and look. And after going through the one with all the writing advice and looking, I'm like, oh wait, they did make a promise there. And so you guys have kind of ruined it for me, but also kind of made it awesome.
Well, if you need help sleeping, I mean, Space Shuttle is out there. You can read that.
I don't think it is actually.
Oh,
no. But it's probably somewhere in Dropbox though.
It is in Dropbox. Yeah, you can find that shit in a heartbeat. And I don't want to ruin it, but there's actually a Space Shuttle surprise in Dropbox that if you dig around, you can find it.
Ooh, fun. I'm going on a scavenger hunt then. Anyway.
So let's talk about creating an email list when you're just starting out. Now, like we were saying at the top of the show, I think that this is I think that there are 2 purposes here. One is truly how to get started, blah blah blah. But the other is we just had that show with Andre last week or last hour, depending on when you were listening. And it's an overwhelming topic. And it's the sort of thing I think we really want to, let's do some real nuts and bolts. Like let's actually help some folks who don't have email lists and are overwhelmed into actually, and ask your questions this show, I would say too. I would.
Well, yeah, what I like about this is there's more of a narrative here. So Andre gets really high level on the email. And it's almost like he has a spiritual relationship with email. Like it's very zen. I love hearing him talk about it. Christine has a real high level understanding, and it's very mechanical too. And what we have here is great because it's an actual. We're not poking at it. And I think Johnny even said that last episode. We're poking at it. There's a lot of places to poke at this, but Christine
right, like we
actually
talked about re-engagement sequences, last chance emails, soap opera sequences. Like it was kind of all over the place.
Yeah, and I think that was more of a discussion than a tutorial, which like for me, I would actually probably prefer that kind of conversation because that's how I learn best. Is just when people are talking about stuff, and then I can pluck the things that that was super relevant to me right out of the conversation. But I actually think that's less helpful for the majority of people. And for the majority of people, they want something that's a little more linear and, do this and then this and then this. And Christine actually wrote the show notes for today's show. And it's very linear. We're starting with pick a service provider. How do you get started? Deliver your read magnet, right? So it's really in order. These are all the things that you need to do. Here's the order you need to do them. And here's the why and the benefit that you should receive. So, this is going to be a great show because I think whether you have a list or not, we're going to kind of take you through the process all the way from getting started to, brushing your list teeth, which you have to do more often than you probably are. So, Christine, thank you for being our in-house email ninja. We used to have to do everything ourselves, and now we don't because you're helping us to think smarter and longer term and breaking down our sequences and all of that. So do you want to talk just to start kind of like what it is, all the different things that you have been touching because well, I mean just in regards to email.
Dave to answer that question if we're going to talk about all the things somebody's been touching.
Well, he's disappeared.
He's got a list, right? Like hold on,
here he's smiling too. What have you been touching, Dave?
Huh? What?
All right, so Christine, do you want to talk just about the different email that you've been touching? Because I think that there is something for everybody listening to this, because she's hit our Smarter Artist lists, all of our different fiction lists. There's a lot going on there, and there's a lot of history that we're having to navigate through. There's a lot of changes that we're having to navigate through, and then there's a lot of upcoming initiatives that we're having to prepare for and kind of lay the groundwork for. And then we're also trying to aggressively list build really for the first time at the Smarter Artist. So there's a lot of balls in the air, and Christine's kind of juggling that all.
Yeah, well, I'll say yes, there are a lot of balls in the air. There's a lot of complexity associated with how we handle email and have to manage email in terms of managing the Smarter Artist stuff, the Realm and Sand stuff, the CI stuff, some of the other lists we have. I mean, we have a lot of history. So there's a lot of complexity to how we manage email that the average Smarter Artist is not going to have to deal with. So how we do things and what we pay attention to and where we put our 80% time is not necessarily where all of you guys have to worry about. And so for that, I think sometimes we start talking about things and it gets a little bit overwhelming. And one of the reasons that I put together the show notes for this one is kind of that going back to the basics. Because I think even during the last show, either Jackie or Beth jumped in and said, yeah, this is all really overwhelming. And, where do I even start? And a lot of people face that. A lot of people deal with okay, well, that's all well and good, but how do I start? And so I think it's important to know all the things that we do, and that, we've got the experience and everything. There are a lot of things that we're not doing 100% the way we should, and there's a lot of room to improve and iterate. But I think that we've done so many of the things. We've learned all of the mistakes that you guys shouldn't make. So I want our listeners, our audience, our readers to learn from the things that we've done wrong.
Awesome.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from with it. And I do think that another thing to point out, with podcasts, a lot of people go back and listen to backlists. And so, the people listening to this, you guys, it might be August of 2017 as you're listening to this, or it might be, August of 2063. I don't know. So the things we're going to talk about today are somewhat technical. We're going to get into some nuts and bolts, and a lot of the technical things change over time. So we'll talk strategy things that are always going to stay true, but we'll also talk some technical things. So if you're listening to this a long time away, come back and check at our website, and we'll be updating that kind of thing. We'll update the checklists and things like that as technology changes significantly. But some of the tech stuff, like if we're talking about how to set up an account, the screens might look a little bit different a year from now. So just keep that in mind.
So maybe we start with email providers, right? Because, this is the perennial debate. We know we definitely have our opinions, but a lot of people are like, well, I'm just getting my feet wet. I want to start.
Well, you hear the MailChimp all the time. I think among authors, probably 80%. Christine, does that seem about right to you, or MailChimp?
MailChimp or MailerLite. A lot of people are starting to use MailerLite because before MailChimp introduced automation as part of their free package, MailerLite was offering automation in their free package. MailerLite, I think, is free up to 1,000 users that included automation. MailChimp just added automation, and I haven't messed with it with my free account yet. Because I have free accounts with everybody. I've used every damn email service provider that there is. So, but yeah, I think MailChimp has added automations. So I don't know if they changed their limit or not. But the biggest issue with MailChimp is, they market the crap out of everything. They sent me socks one year and it was really cute. They had little monkeys. Awesome. But they spend a ton of money on marketing, and that means that they are making a ton of money off of us. Aweber also is, MailChimp and Aweber both their pricing model is based on lists. So for every list, the number of people that you have on that list, you get billed for. So if a person is on 3, 4, 5 lists, you pay for them 3, 4, 5 times. And that's
which is really outdated. That's like it's like what we used to pay for international calls in the 80s. Like, it just doesn't make sense anymore because now you can just pick up your cell phone and not have to worry about that.
Or paying per minute on dial-up internet.
Right. It's just
outdated, but it also costs you a lot of functionality. You know, I want to send to these people, and then you end up hitting the same people 5 times because you're sending to different lists, because you have to send a different list because you can't send to all the lists at the same time. You can't say, I want to send this to the Realm and Sands.
So you're paying more for something that sucks.
A lot less, right?
Yeah. And also just the way that they manage the way they manage tagging and some of the advanced things that you can do to identify the reader. Like if you want to identify readers who are in a particular genre, if you want to identify readers who have downloaded a particular reader magnet or who have read a particular book. Some of the newer ones, and Active Campaign is our favorite at this point. We moved everything into Active Campaign about.
I'm thinking we're going to Drip now.
I'm not moving again. Andre has moved twice since.
Okay, then you need to teach me how to cut and paste, because apparently what I do is not working.
I will teach you how to cut and paste, Dave. Actually, we need to talk, Dave.
Yes, or Dave, you can give that to Heather, could put it in. Like, there are solutions here.
I didn't know that was an option. All right. Okay.
It's always an option. We've been telling you this for years. We've had shows about outsourcing. Were you not there?
All right.
You're the writer.
There are literally 4 of us on staff that would do that for you.
I know. Like,
Jamie and I had a conversation about, I really wish Dave would let us set his emails up for him.
What do you mean I didn't know that was an option? Everybody listening. Okay. No. Everybody listening right now knew that was an option.
I asked before who would do it. If I remember correctly.
You don't.
No. Because I was asking Christine at the time, and she's like, well, I set up a template for you, and you can go ahead and, just cut and paste into there. And I took that as, okay, well, don't ask Christine. She didn't say, well, ask Heather or somebody else. Okay.
You might have asked me like in the middle of the night and wanted me to do it then. I'm not going to do it in the middle of the night when you're like up.
All right. Anyway. We all know the score here. Okay. So
it's all my fault.
so okay, Christine, I like how you have this. This
episode is brought to you by MailChimp.
I like how you have this. You have hobbyist, bootstrapper, entrepreneur, and money bags. And so you have kind of, assigned the separate companies to these, designations. Do you want to talk about those?
Yeah. And one of those things, I know a lot of people are starting out and have absolutely zero cash to put into their author business. People who are, who are working 3 jobs just to cover the rent, and scrambling their writing into the 15 minutes while they're driving or lunch hour or whatever. I mean, there are people who are on really, really tight budgets, who are writing slow, but who are still wanting to try to get into this, but know that they're not going to be list building aggressively for a long time. Those writers at that point in their career are more of a hobbyist, in that they love to write, but they're not able to make a living at it anytime in the really close future.
Would you say those people don't really need a mailing list if they don't have a lot of books coming out?
I personally would say if you're more than 3 to 4 months away from publication, don't waste your time with list building.
I totally agree with that.
But if somebody convinces you that you have to have a freaking email list, and you're not going to be building anywhere, if you're not going to clear 500 or 1,000 people in the next 6 months to a year, then go with one of the free providers. Yeah, then you can go, if you think you're never going to get over 1,000 or 2,000, and you're always just going to write because you love to write and you're not really interested in the marketing, then I kind of don't know why you're here, but okay, but we love you anyway.
Well, I mean, I would even say, I mean, maybe this is just me, but I wouldn't even put the within 6 months to a year thing on that, because if you want, like, moving is a pain in the ass. And so let's say you aren't ready now, and then a year from now you're ready, and you've built this list of, even if it's just 500 people, you now have to move them. You will lose people. Something will get fucked up.
Your time is worth more than that. It is. So it's almost, I love this designation, because you have to ask yourself, am I a hobbyist, or is this a business? And if it's a business, I totally understand bootstrapping. I really, really, really get it. And we have been lean at many times in our company's history. So like, I get it. But I think that if you can't spend, we're not
Active
talking.
Campaign is $9 a month for the starter.
Yeah.
And that's where I was going to go next. If you
that's my daily soda budget.
It's not far off, right? Like, seriously?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and seriously, if you're not willing to call yourself a hobbyist, if you believe that your writing is more than just a hobby for you, then Active Campaign does start $9 a month if you pay it monthly, and it's under $8 a month if you pay annually. So if you pay a year up front, it's less than $8.
Yeah, just like choke it down and like, oh, okay, it's $100, and that's a lot of money. Like, I'm not pretending like it's not, but the startup costs for our business that we're lucky enough to be in is really, really low compared to most businesses. One of the businesses that's easiest to start up in this country, pizza, like start a pizza place. But you still need an oven, you need employees, you need insurance, you need all kinds of stuff. You need first and last month rent. But we don't need any of that stuff. And we can't bulk about the tiny little things that we do need, because you add it all up and it's just really not that much.
Yeah, and on that, when you're bootstrapping, I would say wait on your email list until you are close to ready to release something. And if you're bootstrapping, I would recommend waiting until you have 3 books to release. But then when you're a month, 2 months, maybe 3 away from releasing and start dropping, then set up an account with Active Campaign, and don't use Aweber, and don't use MailChimp, and don't use MailerLite, please. Active Campaign is fantastic. Andre recommended Drip. He's moved to Drip. I haven't used them yet, so I can't really say much about them, but he likes them. But then go ahead and invest in that, and then invest in really building your list with that. So if you're a bootstrapper, wait as long as you can and then invest.
Is your advice to wait for 3 books? Is it the same for fiction and nonfiction?
No,
nonfiction.
Nonfiction is a totally different animal.
Nonfiction, get your book out, build your list, rinse, repeat. Like, nonfiction is a much easier animal.
Okay, all right.
And by the way, just so we don't forget to mention this, Christine made us an email essentials checklist that covers a lot of this. It also has a link to Active Campaign, Andre's course, Autoresponder Madness, some other things. That's at sterlingandstone.net/email essentials. So just wanted to toss that out. So continue on.
And these other ones like Infusionsoft, Entreport, like I mean,
I'm not in love with that idea, honestly. I've heard many stories of people who say
it's prison.
Yeah. They're very much a jail, and the only time that you want to use any of those is when you have more money than you know what to do with, and you want to pay somebody else to deal with it. And I mean, that's it. They're like Infusionsoft is great for people who are really, really advanced internet marketers who are doing lots.
Yes, but
never want to leave it. Sean, the guy that we talked to, do you remember the figure that he tossed out when he had somebody?
Yes, yes. It's because it sounds impossible. He says 10,000 man hours.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Infusionsoft is very.
He's basically built he has a multi-million-dollar business. Mm-hmm. He's built on Infusionsoft essentially, and he hates it. He hates it. It's always breaking, and the funnels don't work, and he has to have all this.
Be careful about what we say.
This is his opinion.
Allegedly.
No, this is his opinion. I'm not saying who it is, but stuff always breaks, and he has to have a custom coder or developer come in and tweak all the shopping carts, and things don't natively work, and he wants to get off, but he can't because it would cost him 10,000 man hours to do it. They've already done the research to figure out what it would cost to migrate everything that was built without breaking the whole company, and that sucks. Like, then they're basically become a hostile partner to your business. That's terrible. So that's more complicated than I think 99.9% of authors need.
I can't imagine a fiction author being in a situation in a business structure where where Infusionsoft or Entreport would be necessary for the type of work that they need to do.
No way.
I cannot imagine. I mean, we do some pretty complex shit, and I mean, we're on the light plan for ActiveCampaign.
Right.
There are like 2 features of the mid-level plan that I would love to have, but it is significantly more expensive than the light, and it's not worth the spend.
Yeah, the people I know who use Entreport or Infusionsoft have every reason to use them. They're the right tools for their business, but for our business,
but yeah,
no.
not for us,
and for the people listening to this,
yeah.
no. So I think that the ActiveCampaign, you know, it does seem like a really good solution for anyone who's forward thinking enough to say that I am building my career and my list is one of my best assets.
Yeah, and for starting up, you know, I know a lot of people get really intimidated in starting a new account, setting up, and they're like, oh, it's so difficult. I remember after the summit 2 years ago, after the first summit, the 2016 summit, I met one of our smarter artists for breakfast the day after. And we sat for about 45 minutes in the restaurant of the hotel and set up a new account for her and set up her list. And she's like hitting bestseller lists now. I'm really proud of her. She's really built her mailing list up. Everything is wonderful. But it's not that difficult. And no matter who you choose for your email service provider, every single one of them has videos and tutorials to help you set it up. It is in their best interest to get you set up and operating, because the faster you grow your list, the more money they make. So they like it when you get set up. So I would say
even Aweber, who I would never recommend, not because they're not a good company, just because I think they're kind of a dinosaur. But when I set up my account 9 years ago, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, my computer was new. I was, you know, totally idiotic. And I called them up, and on the phone, like, somebody walked me through it and helped me. So Christine's totally right. Like, they want you as a customer because you're recurring, and not only are you every month, but as your business grows, their business grows too. Like, so they are so invested in your success.
Yeah. And so with that, you know, all of them, you know, when you land on the page, and if you click on ActiveCampaign, if you go to sterlingandstone.net/ActiveCampaign, it'll take you to the ActiveCampaign main window. There's a button that's, you know, try it for free. There's a 14-day free trial. You click on that and you just read the screens and follow through. One of the things that people get hung up on is that it requires a physical address. All of them require a physical address to comply with spam requirements, spam laws. You can get a PO box. You don't have to, and I don't recommend using the address of your house. Dave's not even here. He would, you know, jump in on that one. But you can use, you know, you can get a PO box. You can get like something at Mailboxes, etc., or the UPS store, something like that. You can share a PO box with, you know, some of your friends. You can send it to, if you have
use Dave's address.
You can use Dave's.
Can you get a PO box like in Alaska, like really far from wherever you are?
You could. You can use mail forwarding services. You can have it sent, like if you have a job, like I used my.
Can you have it sent to? Can you use the White House address?
You probably could.
Maybe Dave has a PO box, but it's a box that's just pissed off.
But don't let that.
Deposits.
I mean, I do not recommend doing this, but I know someone who is sitting in this room who just put among the trees for my mailing address one time in setting up an account. They don't validate it, but you can get into big trouble and you can get fined for that. So, you know, try to use a real address, but you do not have to use your house address. And a PO box, I think my PO box, a PO box locally here, I think I can get for like $4 a month.
I'm going to use Stephen King's address.
Yeah, fun tidbit about the PO box is if you have one, check it every once in a while.
Well,
because,
yeah.
like, you forget about it, and then like a fan will send you something or something. I mean, it's weird. Like, and you'll be like, oh shit, I forgot about that. Or
and they might send you food, and that would be really bad.
I would never eat food that somebody didn't know. I'm Davey in that way.
Well, I wouldn't, but they might do it.
Yes.
And then if it sits in your PO box for a month and a half, the people at the PO post office, the people at the post office might start wondering what the smell is.
Then it'll be a BO office.
It would be in my little local post office. I don't think would appreciate that.
We have a question regarding something you said. Jackie said, Nonfiction I get because I get signups from blogs and free ebooks. But fiction, are you relying on subscribers from call to action in your book? So that's why you should wait until you have about 3 books?
Kind of. One of the biggest ways to get people onto your list, yes, is the call to action at the end of your book, and you want to have someplace else to take them. But you can also, you can advertise on Facebook, you can advertise in a number of places, any of your list cookies. And that actually brings us to the next thing in the list, which is you've got to give people a damn good reason to join your list. And join my newsletter is not a damn good reason.
No
one wants to join your fucking newsletter. I'm really sorry. But I don't mean that in a mean way, but it's like nobody really cares about a newsletter. They want something that's in it for them. And so as you're starting to communicate with people, you've got to give them something that they want that has value. Give it to them in exchange for their email address, because that is a transaction. It's your email address. Honestly, I guard my email address more than I guard my money.
Me too.
And I guard my money pretty closely. My daughters will tell you that. You know, I'm very frugal, but I'm really careful with my email address because I get on, you know, so many lists and I hate getting email and all of that. So I want something that's valuable for my email address. And readers are like that. Now, there are some readers who will read anything and who are ebook hoarders. And so you do have to deal with them. We'll talk about them in a minute, but you want to give somebody something that they want, and you want something that your ideal reader wants, but the other people don't want. I mean, there are a lot of people who will do, you know, I'll give away an Amazon gift card to people who join my, you know, I'll do a giveaway of an Amazon gift card for joining my email list. Well, no, because then you're going to get people who want cash. Everyone wants cash. You want to give away something your ideal reader. So like Dave gives away Yesterday's Gone. You know, the ideal reader for Yesterday's Gone wants that. Nobody else wants that. No offense, Dave.
Also, if you're giving away something,
ouch.
also if you're giving away something like a Kindle or iPad or whatever, you're going to get a bunch of signups, and that might push you over whatever threshold you're at where you're paying for. And
well, not just that, but you have a diluted list because you don't know who's on your list. So the exact parallel here is you don't want everybody buying your books, right? So for us, we love you, smart artists, but we actually don't want you buying our collective Inkwell books, because then Amazon doesn't know who to sell to, because
you're messing up our also bots.
Yeah, the also bots get messed up. So it's exactly the same in this context. You don't want to mess up. You don't want to mess it up. You want to purify it, because then the results are clearer and faster.
Yeah, and so as you're figuring out who you really want to have on your list, who is most likely to buy your books, you know, the person who read through your first book or your first story or a novella or a prequel or whatever it is, that's the ideal person. You know, when they're done with that, if they want the next thing from you, that's the best person to get on your list. So that's where that end of book call to action is the best place to get qualified leads for your list. So at the end of that, you know, you give them the next thing that they want, which is, you know, find out what happens next, include a cover and a blurb for the next book, the next novella, the next, you know, whatever it is, and give that to them for signing up. And that's the best way to get people onto your list. And then from there, within your list, you have to deliver that. And technically, there are a couple of different ways to do that. If you're using an autoresponder, which you can do in all of the major ESPs now, you'll want to, the first email that they get after they join your list needs to have a link to download the book or whatever it is that you've promised them. You deliver that to them in the first email, and whether it's BookFunnel is by far the best way to do it. It's super easy and it takes all the technical questions off of you. But you can put the book file in you can make a PDF and put it in a Dropbox folder and send a link to them that way. You can put it like ActiveCampaign, you can actually upload the file and attach it. I think they have a limit on how much you can do, but you can host it on your website and put a link to it. I mean, there are any number of ways that you can do it. Any of the ways other than BookFunnel, you're going to get questions about how to sideload it, how to get it onto their device. I'll say, I had that issue with my dad about 2 weeks ago. I tried to send him a book and he could not for the life of him figure out how to get it onto his Kindle. He also didn't know his Amazon password, so I couldn't put it on his Kindle for him. And I'm like, I really wish I would have just put this in BookFunnel and sent it to my dad. It would have been way easier. I had to go to Florida to physically pick up his Kindle to figure out what was wrong with it. That was why
Now that's tech support.
That's totally why I went last week. Anyway, but it's dealing with the technical aspects of it is something that unless you like tech, you really want to try to offload that.
Oh yeah, and BookFunnel is beautiful.
And BookFunnel is cheap.
Solution. And I think the key on your reader magnet is to not overthink it. I think it's really easy to try to come up with the perfect thing, and it's the same thing as, you know, a story. Where do you get all your ideas? No, dude, just like get that out and then make it better. So your first reader magnet may not be the best reader magnet. Your best reader magnet may come a year into you doing it, but you'll have figured it out. You'll know your readers. But don't wait for the perfect reader magnet to start your list. Know that you can always change that later. You know, really take your reader's pulse, know what they want, and then provide that thing for them. But what you do a year into your author career, or 3 years into your author career, or 5 years into your author career is going to be very different. You know, we're behaving differently now than we did 5 years ago, and I'm sure we'll be doing different things 5 years from now. So listen, pay attention, and you know, iterate. So okay, this kind of piggybacks off of what we were talking about with Andre, but the autoresponder, right? And in this case, it's a setup sequence. So okay, now we have our list, we have our provider, we have our cookie, we have all of that. We have our opt-in. Somebody just said they like my writing enough to get my cookie. This is awesome. What do I send them? What does that email sequence look like? How many emails should it be? What period of time? What am I trying to communicate? And when do I get that hard sell? Because eventually somebody's on my list, I want to sell them something.
Yeah, and this is another one where you just don't overthink it. People, I mean, we get really excited about autoresponders, and you know, from the Andre show, I mean, nothing makes me happier than to sit and have a beer with Andre and talk autoresponders. We did that last year at the summit, and I mean, we sat and talked about the automated emails, and I mean, it was kind of geeky and creepy, but it gets me really happy. But most people aren't like that. Most people are Dave, who said, I don't know what to say to them. And really, don't overthink it. Think about, I mean, I always say, imagine that you're standing in line at Starbucks and somebody behind you is talking to their friend and said, I'm a thriller writer, so I'll use this one. Oh, I just read the new Jack Reacher book and I just loved it. And now I don't know what to read next. And I turn around and I said, I steal Garrett's line. Have I mentioned that I write books?
I turn around and tell him, could you please shut the hell up? I'm trying to get a Starbucks. Thank you.
And
we've established that they don't have Diet Cokes at Starbucks.
Yeah, you found me out.
But your first email in your autoresponder in your welcome sequence is what you would say to them and say, hey, I'm Christine and I actually write thrillers and they're actually pretty good. Would you be interested in taking a look? You would? Okay, great. Here it is. I'd really love to hear what you think about it. And you just give it to them. Really, really simple. Your second email gives them a little bit of time to read it and then just checks in. Make sure that they've gotten it. Make sure that hey, do you have any questions? I'll check in with you in a week or so just to let you see how you're doing. So your first two are just gives, are just here it is and check in on it, and don't overthink it. Just what would you tell somebody? What would you talk to a stranger about?
And don't do it 5 minutes apart. Hey, you read my email yet?
Don't do them 5 minutes apart. Give them a few days. And the timing is, you can play with it a little bit to decide what works for you. I typically will do anywhere from 1 to 3 days on the second email, because you don't want to go too long to where they've forgotten completely and be like, who is this? I don't care, unsubscribe. But you don't.
I think 3 days is that threshold. I think 4 days is almost like, meh.
Yeah, 4 days is a little bit too long. And I will say on the Smarter Artist ones, anybody who's done any of the Smarter Artist magnets, that's 1 day. Because on the businessy stuff, nonfiction stuff, I tend to go a little bit quicker because the threshold is is tighter in terms of people.
Well, because that's a specific answer question thing. They needed some solution. You maybe provided a tease toward that solution, and so if you're not responding onto that inquiry, then it gets cold.
Yeah, and the third email is where I take a step back and then do a real introduction and say, okay, hey, by the way, this is who we are. This is what we're about. This is what I write about. If you really like that, that's awesome. I'd love to have you around. If you're not really into that, it's okay. No hard feelings. You can click here and unsubscribe. Give them an opportunity to get out if they're not the right person, because you don't want to be paying for them.
Okay, and would you even go so far as to actively say you should aggressively get rid of them?
I would.
Okay. Now, what would you say to the authors? Because there are a lot of authors out there who don't want to cut anyone off of their list. They think of everybody on their list as a potential buyer.
I would say that is thinking from a place of scarcity and fear. And the chances of that person, if that person isn't interested in your work after just having read a couple of things of yours and said, I don't really want to hear from this person, they are very, very unlikely to be the person who's going to buy your book. And if they do,
at least based off of your email. If they do, it may be just because they're on Amazon again and it's in their also bots. And
yes.
It's a kind of desperation that people that date somebody that's really rude to them all the time, and I got to keep them around because nobody else likes me.
Okay, but does that ever work?
No. I'm saying it's not a good idea. No.
Right. So
interesting comparison. Yeah.
So yeah. Well, okay. So that's actually that's a good segue, because I think that in closing we should talk list hygiene, because
you don't want people on your list who aren't rabid fans of yours. You want the people on your list, you want to be your super fans. You want to be the people that you can count on, the people who are going to say nice things to you when you need to hear it, the people who are, Dave's list is one of these. When Dave gets vulnerable with his list, he is always scared about doing it, but when he does it, his people, his readers, his list comes around him and loves it. I mean, those are the people you want on the list. When you get vulnerable with your list, you want the people who are going to support you, who are going to cheer for you, who are going to get excited, and who are going to buy your book when it comes out. And when you ask them to, those are the people you want on your list. Everybody else is just a drag. I mean,
I would go broader than that. I think you want super fans on your list, but I think you want anybody who's a fan. They don't need to be super fans.
They don't have to have rabies?
No. They need to have
$5 and willing to plunk it down for your book.
They do need to be willing to buy or evangelize or review, or there does need to be some reciprocity in the relationship, because what we do is hard. I don't think it's Robert McKee hard, like it's hard brain surgery. Yeah, I don't agree with that. But I do think what we do is difficult. I think it's mentally taxing. And I think we've put a lot of our hearts and our souls and ourselves into our work. And it's okay to expect compensation for that. And it's okay to expect that our list is an asset that should deliver value. But I don't think you just need super fans. I think you need people who appreciate your work and are willing to pay for it in one way or another. I mean, we still get emails that are like, man, I thought their books was going to be free forever. And then
what do you mean your books cost money?
Yeah.
You don't want those people really on your list.
Yeah, you're actually paying. Right.
You're paying to have them on your list. Now, it's small bit per email address. It's small bits per month, but you are paying for them. You are paying for the privilege of them insulting you or ignoring you.
Right. We paid for the privilege of being insulted. We pay for Heather to respond to that person. We pay for our time to see the response. And it is not huge, but it is there. It's friction. You don't want that person on your list. You want people who are likely to enjoy and celebrate what you're doing as an artist.
Yeah. And so every now and then, in that basic, in the early sequence, give them an opportunity to get out if they're not the right person. But then every now and then you should go through your list and cull out the people who aren't listening, who aren't paying attention. And Johnny and I were actually talking about this earlier today, and we've run re-engagement sequences, re-engagement campaigns on both the Relman Sands list and on the Aubrey list. And so we've gone through and, we've run a 4 email sequence that says, hey, if you've read one of my books, click here, because if the system, we're targeting people who have not opened or clicked on an email in a while. So it's like, hey, if you want to be around, click here. And you get kind of more aggressive as they don't click. You send the next one to the people who didn't click to it and say, do you really want to be here? And Johnny and I were talking today. It's like, let's try something really super simple. Let's find anybody who hasn't clicked or opened in 3 months or 4 months or 6 months. We haven't decided exactly how much because I want to look and see how many it is. But then one email that says basically, so I guess this is goodbye, or something.
Well, I was thinking something plainer because so this is goodbye, or the really caustic ones you tend to do after the end of a sequence. But I was just thinking of something real simple that's like, because the reason this came about is not necessarily this is best practice, but because we're like, shit, we're gonna have to write some big, re-engagement campaign. I said, can't we just send them an email and say, hey, my software tells me that you haven't engaged in a while, so do you want to just save us both some time and use some inbox space and click if we're wrong, that sort of thing. Because why not? When you're open and click rates get so low, it's just like, number one, it hurts your deliverability in general. Number two, you're paying for them. And number three, it's just disheartening. You're like, shit, nobody is opening my emails. What's wrong with these people? Why not just delete them, Jackie asked. The reason is because there are sometimes errors. And you also get people who are sleepers that just I want to stay there and I am reading, but opens don't always work. You know what I mean? Like an open pixel doesn't always track. They may be opening and your thing says that they're not opening. And so you want to give them one more chance to re-engage.
Yeah, and we learned that when we ran one of the first sequences with ActiveCampaign is every now and then it doesn't pick up the clicks. And I think that it's related to the email client that the user was using. But we had a person who we ran it to 6,000 people. We had 7 people that we picked up at the end of it that got the, hey, so I guess this is goodbye, sayonara, you're off, we're deleting you.
After a lot of emails.
Yeah, we'd sent them 4, and they replied back with 7 people replied back to Heather and said, wait, I've been clicking and you're still sending me this email. So we've added, we add a little thing in the bottom. Hey, sometimes technology fails us, if you're still getting this, or, hit reply. And so there are some things that we've learned with that the technology doesn't always work exactly the way you expect it to. So that's one of the reasons that we definitely want to give them an opportunity. But with it, we'll send it and have a link in there. Click here to resubscribe if you want to. And with ActiveCampaign, we can have an activity that, we send them just to a landing page on, a page on the Sterling & Son site that says, we've got it. But when they click that link, it will automatically resubscribe them to the list.
Although, to your point, if sometimes the technology fails, I wonder if people are going to leave and wait, hold on, I was clicking that link, but we'll never know.
Now, what I was thinking about that after we talked about it, and I may send a confirmation email and say, hey, if you didn't get the confirmation email, then reply to Heather and let her know, and we'll fix it.
Right. Or if you did get the email that says you've been in the you've been removed email, maybe that's a good way to do it. Give it some time. You've been removed. If this is a mistake, reply. Don't click. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, the list hygiene is really important. And it is important to not just let people stay on the list who don't want to be there, who aren't listening, who aren't interested, and who ultimately aren't your buyer.
Right. I think a lot of this, it comes down to confidence. I think it's a difficult area for a lot of people, but I think writers especially, to have confidence in. But if you have a little more confidence every step of the way, get your list started, get your reader magnet out there, get that welcome sequence, and clean your list. All of those, do it with a little more aggression, a little more, I don't mean aggression as in, but just.
Ooh, can it mean that though?
Be willing to say goodbye to people.
Yeah, just
Be
be
willing
more
to say goodbye to the wrong people.
assertive, maybe. Be more assertive in your goals and your production and what you're going to do to get these things taken care of, because you can always tweak them later. You can always improve. But standing by timid and saying, I don't really get email marketing, I don't really understand email marketing, or I don't really want to do that, it's not helping you. It's not serving you. It's probably holding you back more than you realize. So some of these essentials are exactly that. They are essentials, and you want to get them, and then you want to get better at them, but you have to get started.
Yeah, and there are step-by-step worksheets on first, the email essentials, the how to set it up and the first things to do. And then also there's a checklist for the 5 email author autoresponder. If you go to sterlingandstone.net/email essentials, you can download both of those for free. So there's also a link for ActiveCampaign, and there's a link for Autoresponder Madness on there. So if you're interested in either of those, you can get those there as well. So it's sterlingandstone.net/email essentials.
All right, so with that, we'll bring this episode to a close. But I did want to mention, I'm not actually sure when the show airs, but I do know that Summit sales are well underway. That's coming up. That's in February. So if you're thinking about going, and you should, if you can, that's in, like I said, it's in February. So it's sterlingandstone.net/summit 2018. And I'll just remind you that the price goes up at some point. I wish I should have some of the details, but the point is
November 1st.
November 1st is when the thing goes up. Watch this air after November 1st. But we do expect it to sell out. It's at the Renaissance Hotel, which is this beautiful hotel we've had things in before. We'll have a lot of space. It's a really nice hotel. It's away from downtown. You won't have to run into the traffic and all that stuff. And there's a lot of really cool stuff around. So really excited to have the summit at the Renaissance next year. So that's it. I guess that's all. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Christine, again, for being on.
Thank you, Christine, for being here and for wrangling all our emails.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.